Let's discuss some principles of biomechanics in orthodontics. This will be useful in understanding the reasoning behind any auxiliaries we may use, such as attachments, bite ramps, and torque controllers, and the movements we create. Let's begin with anchorage. To anchor is to hold or resist the movement of teeth. This is provided by a specific anatomic unit, for example, molars and premolars working together to anchor the movement of anterior teeth. In orthodontics, being able to calculate anchorage is crucial for the purpose of creating reliable teeth movement. In this image, we see that the anchorage value of a tooth, which means it's resistant to movement, is equivalent to its root surface area, provided by this number. The larger the root, the greater the area over which a force can be distributed. In this example, if we add the value of the first molar plus the second premolar, we get 715, which is slightly larger than the sum of the canines and the incisors at 640. This means that the anterior teeth will not be good enough anchorage to move posterior teeth, but the posterior teeth will be good enough to anchor the movement of the anterior teeth. Remember, for any action, there is a reaction, so the anchorage value of the teeth serving as anchorage need to be equal or higher than the teeth being moved. The issue with calculating anchorage is that most of the time, the root anatomy is unknown or not taken into consideration. This results in inaccurate calculations and an unpredictable orthodontic treatment. At 3D thanks to our technology, we have developed specific teeth movement protocols which consider the root anatomy for anchorage purposes. This results in much more predictable treatment outcomes. The next key biomechanic concept is the center of resistance that you can see illustrated here. This is a point at which resistance to movement can be concentrated for mathematical analysis. To fully understand this, let me take you back to physics for a second. Let's remember that the center of mass of a body is that point at which all the body's mass seems to be concentrated. If a net force is applied at this point, this results in translation of the object, so no rotation. The concept of the center of resistance of a tooth is analogous to this concept. Since a tooth is not a free object but is restrained by the periodontium, a force applied to it will result in bodily movement of the tooth, so the root and the crown moving in unison. Accurate force application requires knowledge of the location of the center of resistance of a tooth. Various attempts have been made to assess the location of the center of resistance by different methods depending on author, as you can see here. Regardless, an accurate calculation is only possible if the root and bone anatomy are considered. Just as with the anchorage concept, 3D has the technology to gather this information and use it in our teeth movement protocols. Let's chat about bodily movement for a second. We already explained that this relates to translation of a tooth, which is when the crown and the root move towards the same direction at the same rate, just as with this example below. Bodily movement is very difficult to achieve in orthodontics since it requires for the force to pass through the tooth's center of resistance, so accurate calculation of it is needed. If this is not achieved, teeth tend to tip instead of translate, as you can see here above. This tooth also exemplifies only one point of vector of force applied, which is illustrated by an orthodontic bracket in this case. Besides accurate calculating the center of resistance, 3D is able to apply many points of force as the tooth is covered by the aligner. Because 3D system can get closer to the center of resistance and the aligner completely encases the tooth, our movements are more predictable and extensive. Although more advanced concepts of biomechanics differ based on the movement plan, for example, distalization versus intrusion, I want to present you with a particular one that will serve to illustrate how 3D truly works. Here, we have intrusion and torque for anterior teeth, which we call torque intrusion. You may remember that intrusion is the movement of a tooth into the supporting structures. On the other hand, torque is the buccal-lingual movement of a tooth, such as the crown and the root go in opposite directions, like a seesaw effect. Both of these movements are difficult on their own, so combining them is even more challenging. With 3D Predict, upon submitting your patient's dental scans and optionally a CBCT, we gather all the information possible on center of resistance, anchorage, and anatomical limits. We also apply our AI protocols to provide you with a treatment that is feasible and that can create simultaneous intrusion and torque without the need for rubber bands or any other additional appliances. In this example, we determined that for torque intrusion to take place, we need to utilize bite ramps on lingual of the anterior teeth and torque controllers around their cervical region. Please note that both these elements are included within the aligner, so you don't need to add them yourself, but we will be discussing them in upcoming videos. The bite ramp and the torque controller work together to create simultaneous forces to generate torque and intrusion at the same time. Thanks to basing our movement protocols in extensive diagnostic information, we're able to provide you with considerable intrusion, up to 3 millimeters for anterior teeth, to correct teeth bites, cross bites, and make space for prosthodontics, implants, and restorations.